Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. With me in studio, well, kind of. We're on StreamYard, which is our studio streaming platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble. You guys can see Chad Berck. Am I saying that correct, Chad? Chad Berck?
That's correct. Chad Berck,
Chad
yes.
Berck. He's with me, and we are talking all things McLean County because there has been a vacancy in County Board District 5 left there by John McIntyre, who resigned abruptly. There was some health concerns there. He wrote that in his statement. And he resigned abruptly, and now there's a vacancy. Now, there was a vacancy for a Democrat in County Board District 8. A Democrat was filled in that district at the last county board meeting. And the reason why they had to fill it was because there was this statutory clause where it says, hey, you have to fill it within 60 days. Had they waited to fill both positions at the same time, the County Board District 8 and 5 seats, then they would have had to wait another like 8 to 10 days after that 60 days, and it would have been problematic. At least that's what the Democrats say. Although, right, there was no punishment under the law if you were to fill it at the same time. But of course, they wanted the majority come the next meeting where Chad might be the nominee. So, Chad Berck, I'm going to give you the floor. Just tell me a little bit about yourself, why you submitted an application this week to become the County Board District 5 member.
Okay, well, my name is Chad Berck, and my family and I have lived here since 2007. My wife grew up in Normal. She has attended the schools, various schools here in Bloomington. She, I believe, was the first graduating class at Normal West after it was built. Went to ISU. That's where we met at ISU. And we left Normal. Both of us went separate ways. She went to Southern for medical school. We still maintain contact as you do. I had been out of the Army at that point and was still going to schools. And as she continued her education, I was in jobs and things. And then eventually we made our way back here to Normal to raise our family. And because she had family here, her mother and father were here. He was a professor at ISU. And it's a great place. It really is. Normal in Bloomington, they are just, there's something about this area. It is. With Illinois and all of its troubles, it really is a great place to raise a family. I grew up in Taylorville, Illinois, which is just south of Springfield. So I have a strong connection to Illinois myself. As I have been here quite a while, I have come to know many people in this community, close relationships. Through my church, I go to Epiphany and develop strong friendships with many people in this community. And I've developed a strong attachment to many people in the community, like I said. And I'm a strong person in both my faith and in politics. And as we live here, I have 3 children. So I have to protect their future. Ultimately, that's what this whole camp choice comes down to, of taking this board. And I feel that this is one sacrifice, and this is a sacrifice of my time to serve, is taking this choice to serve on the board. It's for my children. But to go back to your question, in the community, going to the church, I've done jujitsu here for over 7 years.
Well, that's cool.
It's a great sport. Love it.
Yeah. I
I
do a
work
little bit
with
of boxing here and there, like a little bit of
boxing.
boxing. Mhm.
That's a tough one. That's if you can do boxing, that's a killer.
Mhm.
So good for you. My boys all go through Unit 5
Mhm.
schools. Been there. My oldest son is a football player right now at Normal West, senior, and we have a tight. My family is very tight with the community,
Right.
and
Right.
I've been very involved with politics in the community through school boards, um, normals board, and everything.
Right, exactly, and I'm glad to hear that you've submitted an application, and actually you had messaged me and talked a little bit about why you submitted the application, and we were talking back and forth here on email, and I really like what you had to say here about how you want to ensure a logical, conservative constitutional representation
Hmm.
is again provided to the voters that originally elected John McIntyre. So tell me
Yes.
about John McIntyre and what you believe is a logical, conservative constitutional representation.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot of words. That's
Yeah.
a big mouthful. It really
Yep.
is. Um, and really, it wasn't my choice to run. I was talking with a friend here,
Mhm.
and I was asked. It was actually shocking to want to take this. It wasn't something I wanted to do, so I was asked, and after talking with the family, they said yes, go for it because I've thought about it, but it's a big decision here because
Mhm.
once you take that step, you're in the public. I'm if this happens, I am part of the public now. I can be uh, a not attacked, but I'm out there. I'm a target for the other side.
Well,
So
and here's my thought. Chad, we're both, you mentioned God, and, yeah, I like
yes,
what you say. You're God fearing, and thank you for your service, by the way. You're also a veteran. And I think that, how you say you're going to govern with these two basic metrics. It's the Constitution
yeah,
and the Bible. You've got the government doing right by the people following the Constitution, and then the Bible, the morality, the ethics. You've been pretty outspoken about, hey, I'm a man of God. Do you think that will give you some pushback? And I
definitely, definitely.
yeah, definitely.
Once
Yep.
I once I even mention anything about faith, morality, ethics, they're gonna, I hate to say, go crazy, but it's
Hmm.
gonna set them off
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah.
They're going to not like that fact about me.
Hmm.
They will not enjoy that part of how I make my decisions
Hmm.
because they like to make decisions based on feeling and emotion, whereas I like to make decisions on logic, and it it, it is a part of me where you have right and wrong. Yes, there's emotion involved, compassion and empathy. Totally important. My wife's a physician. She deals with compassion and empathy all day.
Hmm.
Of course, 100%. But you have to look at fixing whatever the situation is. And that's not what the government necessarily is there for. It's to provide a service of whatever the Constitution allows.
Hmm. Well, and that's one thing that I kind of wanted to chat with you about and talk more so about like things that you might face as a county board member. So
Yeah.
recently there was this article, and I'm sure you've read the BLN News by Diane Benjamin. She's a blogger. And if you haven't, I'll just kind of sum it up. It was Cassie Taylor, and she got a raise. And,
Yep.
I totally, me personally, as a constituent of your district, actually. So I am a
Okay.
County 5 and County 5.
County 5.
Yep. And, so the problem to me for me wasn't so much the raise, but it was the lack of transparency. So
Transparency.
what can
Hmm.
you do as a county board member? I mean, that was just a line within the agenda, "Hey, let's
Yeah.
approve this raise." What would you have done in that situation? You see that line in the agenda, let's approve the raise,
Sure.
as a county board member.
Okay. You speak of a huge problem I have with our local government, starting with normal, which I won't be able to do anything about, but maybe I can make a change.
Mhm.
Is number one, the web page is horrible. The school board's web page, Normal's web page, McLean County's web page, the information they put out is horrible. It's minimalist,
Mm.
minimal information. It's like they're ashamed of their salaries. They're
Yeah.
ashamed. They preach that share, share, share for what you need. That's their mantra of the Marxists. Only take what you need. But then they get these exorbitant salaries, and then they're ashamed of it. So let's hide it in the fine print. Well, no. If you get a salary, or in this case, we're talking about this specific case of Cassie, put it out there, just like everything else, and
Mm.
post it. This is what's happening today on the meeting. It's out there. Today's minutes. Bam.
Mm.
It's posted on the webpage for so many days. I'm sure there is a regulation of how many days the minutes have to be posted. And here's the webpage for it. Bam. It's there, highlighted. This will
Yeah.
be what we're going to discuss. This is what has been discussed. This is her salary. You know, I've talked to, just in a brief few days that this topic has been concerning me on the board. Nobody even knew that there was a county administrator. They didn't know that it existed at
Chad,
all.
you're so
Who's
right. Yep.
who's an administrator? Who's this? What are you talking about? Then you talk about how much they make, which a person needs a salary. Nobody really is concerned about that. And then they got a raise, and the 11%. They're like 11% raise. That's quite substantial. Who gets an 11% raise? And then you go into it, and they're like, well, it's over amount of time. They have to perform a certain amount of quality merit in their job and things. Well, then it kind of comes into clarity that, yeah, okay, that's reasonable.
Mhm.
And you just go into the fine print of things. Yeah, okay, well, put that in there, and people read through it. They're not dumb.
Yeah.
People are
Well.
not dumb. They deal with this in their own jobs when they have their yearly raise reviews. So they go through this stuff. But yet the other party, the Democrat or left, as they can label, think that the majority of the population don't know. They don't. They think they're ignorant, but we're not. We
Mhm.
go through this stuff too. We know. We know 2 + 2 is 4, and what 11% of our salary is, and that you have to merit well at State Farm to get a raise to meet a quota, but they don't. So they treat
Mhm.
us like we're stupid. And but yes, back to the main point. Transparency is huge. Getting FOIAs out. If I get on here and I hear that somebody's bucking against the FOIA, I will do what I can.
Mhm.
If I'm going to try to get the ITs to redo the web pages. I mean, these
Mm.
are things that are basic 101. I look at other government web pages. They're clean, efficient. The calendar is there that says today is going to be the county board meeting. You have to surf for a half hour on these web pages to find when the council meetings are. But then you have to click over to 4 other pages and say, oh, well, it's actually not at that location. It's actually Tuesday, at whatever time. It's
Yeah. No, and I could
horrible.
totally get what you're saying, especially with the McLean County website. When I go there and I try to find the agenda or what they're going to be talking about, I click on the agenda and then it asks me to proceed to a different
To
site.
proceed to a site.
Yeah, so that's, like, going to turn people off right away. They're like, "Wait a second, is this,
I
like
don't
where
trust
is this
this.
going to take me?" You know, and I don't trust this. I'd rather it all be on the same internal. It's like it
Why
has to
can't
go to
it?
an external server. Yeah, why can't it? Other people have done it, and I think that that would make it easier. I like that. I'm excited about that, for you, and like you said, post the salaries, the budget is made available, but it proceeds you to a different site. You have to download this
Yes,
huge PDF in
yes,
order to know the basics. So I would love to just have like, hey, here's our expenditures. Here's what we're spending money on. And, I actually got this from, and believe it of all people, Crystal Label. She posted it on her Facebook page. And I've got the budget. It's the 2024 recommended budget. It's up 14.37 million for government operations. So this is a large chunk of the budget goes to government operations. I'm looking at it. It looks about like it's like 61 million. Is that right? 61 million? I don't
61
know.
million.
That's insane for government
Yeah,
operations. It
and
just sounds like a
probably
lot.
without even looking at it, I guarantee you it's salaries and pensions,
Yeah, yeah, well, I'm sure it's all salaries and
not
pensions because that's the bulk
services,
of it.
not services like infrastructure renewal. Not water, adding water line, doing
The
things that
website.
the government website,
Mhm,
things to inform. And most of this is restrictive to the population. The government is not assisting the population. The government is in the way of business and getting people going to work. It's in the way. It
mhm,
slows everything down. The government now does not do what it's supposed to. We were supposed to be a part-time government, and we're not. It's a full-time business, and that's what I am against. I am not for this. So, I mean, that's going to be my thinking. Every time I make a decision, if you see me at a board meeting, I'll probably be sitting there, not asking a lot of questions unless something's really going on. And I'm going to be weighing it against these thoughts of what is, number one, what's their motive? Number two, where in the Constitution is this? So they better have these answers.
mhm.
And number three, how much is it costing? Do they have the money? And where are they getting the money? And can they cut? Can you cut? Can you cut? Where can the taxpayers? Because I want more money in the taxpayers' wallets. This
Yeah,
pure. I mean, that's you hear that from every politician. And dang it, I hate to be a politician. I really do. I'm going to the
right.
dark side. I feel you hear from all of them.
Right. And well, and I think that you're onto something there because people want more money in their pockets because I mean, well, they want more money in their pockets, but
Yeah,
also we're starting to see a mass exodus. I think just out of the state of Illinois in general, McLean County has kind of been able to weather a lot of this
weather it a
exodus
little.
that's happening.
Yeah,
But we are in the middle of a housing crisis right now. So I'm just going to
right now.
ramble off some of these numbers here. So
Yeah.
Rivian has about 7,800 employees, Chad, indicating that we now need 9,000 more housing units. So get this, and you're going to love this because you're a normal
Mm-hmm.
guy. The town of Normal, and he is the Greg Trummel. He's the director of inspections.
Mm,
He's saying
mm,
uh, that interest rates, construction costs have scared off prospective buyers, and that there is a push from young people specifically. They don't want to own houses, and
mm-hmm.
multifamily housing offers leasing options instead of home ownership. So, Patrick, I think what's his name, Hoban, he's the CEO of the Bloomington Normal Economic Development Council, and he says that homeownership is challenging due to these high interest rates. So everybody knows that people don't want to buy houses, and it's almost like they're pitching it as that's a good thing. Like single family homes, they're not building. There's not a whole lot of construction going on for single family homes. Now there is some more for multifamily homes here in
Yeah.
McLean County. But they're almost saying that that's a good thing, that, hey, people don't want to own homes anymore, and we're just going to adapt and build a bunch of multifamily construction permits, or get a bunch of these permits to build the multifamily housing. So your thoughts there, like, do you think that we're going to be able to continue this model of just pushing multifamily housing? And do you think that's good for McLean County, or should we be
No.
focused on single family housing units and getting people to own something here in McLean County?
Well, first off, that's has nothing to do with the government. The government
Mm,
has no decision making on what type of houses are built
mm,
at all. That's private. That's up to the private industry. All the government needs to do is say, where do you need the water lines? Where do you need roads built? And we make sure that uh, it's available, because
mm,
that's the government's job. Make sure there's infrastructure, because they actually, the government is just a group of, gets the people and collects some money together and says we can buy the tractors and the machinery. It was a group of people, that a village that came together and said, let's buy that tractor or whatever to to build the road. Okay, it's just gotten huge. Now you've got a township and stuff. So that's what the government can do. Let's provide the roads and the water, and the power company comes in and provides power, whatever.
mm-hmm,
So let the free market decide what houses are available. But it's what is bad is there aren't enough housing right now, and that is an epidemic across the nation that I don't have an answer for, because right just here, I live in North Normal. A home that was 5 years ago 280,000 went for 520,000. They
whoa,
were selling that for something, and people put extra money on it just to
mm-hmm,
get it, because they go so fast.
yeah,
They just
yeah,
go so fast. You have to just grab them, good or bad. I don't, hey, if you're the owner, if you're the seller, great. If you're the buyer, who knows, in the 5 years, you might
mm-hmm,
have just lost your butt.
yeah. Hey,
You
we're
know,
talking with Chad Berck, and I want to reset here so people know what you're applying for. And you have applied to become the County Board District 5 member. And now at the next meeting, you could possibly be nominated. I think this is how the process goes. And maybe you can explain the process better than I can, Chad. So, will Catherine Metzger decide on either nominating you? And I do want you to chat a little bit about David Paul Blumenshine, who also applied to this, your thoughts on his
yeah.
application, your application, who nominates, and is it up to Catherine Metzger? Do you know that process?
I think the board itself will vote, and I'm sure they've already talking amongst themselves, because my application is in. I've notified everybody that needs notified. I'm going to send a really nice email to all the board members, letting them know my intent. I send a letter of intent to all those that need to know, and what I intend to do. And I also went to the Republican Party's office Tuesday and met with them. Had a nice meeting with everybody. And I even told them, I said, this is me. I made a nice introduction. I said, this is my ideas. If you have somebody else, great, wonderful. I don't really even want to do this, but I don't want you to select someone that's not going to represent the people
Mhm.
properly. John was a great guy. He has a legacy that is phenomenal. Let's not put someone less than him.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
need good representation for the people. I can't see. I don't want to see us going the route of normal city council to the degree that they are.
Mhm.
It would kill. It would hurt me tremendously.
Yeah, well, and we're both normalized. We understand everything that's going on with the town of Normal, the lack of ballot access and things like that. I mean, I don't know if you were a part of the Citizens for Better Normal, but there were a lot of citizens who were trying to gather petitions to try to
Yep.
district up things and get more representation.
Yep.
And then the town of Normal came after those people and
They
said, no,
did.
you can't do that
Can't do
because
that.
you're we're an incorporated town, and we said,
Incorporated and all that. Yes, with
yeah,
Stan and everybody. Yeah.
yeah, and well, you remember it, where they okay, we said, fine, we're an incorporated town. Okay, under state statute, it says that incorporated towns have to have these elected offices. So then we tried to get people to run for those offices. They did. They collected signatures,
Yep.
and then they denied them again. And a
Denied
judge
them.
via home rule, they just said, yeah, Normal can operate the way they want without the whole state statute. And then you got Sharon Chung, who's an Illinois state representative,
El-
doing the bidding of, and she actually served on the McLean County Board at one point. Gave John Sandage a whole lot of hell, right?
yeah.
And they were always constantly button heads because Sharon was, and I remember I went and I visited the McLean County Jail. She was saying that the McLean County Jail was not, um, like it wasn't up to speed, or like it was bad, or that they were mistreating people in the McLean County
Mistreating
Jail,
people. Hmm.
which caused a lot of issues with John Sandage and the inmates, and trying to get these inmates to not think that, oh, I've got a case and I'm going to sue the county.
Right.
And because I think that I'm being mistreated here in the McLean County Jail. And I actually have a county board member contacting my family members about how I'm being mistreated in the jail, and that is something I would truly not want to see happen on the McLean County Board, like we had with the Sharon Chung, where she just was. I mean, that would have been taxpayer money that would have
Yes. A
had to
lot
been
of
debt
wasted money,
if
resources.
it would have come to some sort of settlement like that. But the reason why I'm asking you all of these questions about ballot access and bringing this up about the town of Normal is because, and the Democrats, especially the extremism type ones, where Sharon Chung, you've got Crystal Label,
Hmm.
Corey Byrne, I believe, are the more left leaning candidates on the county board. Um, you might actually see some county Democrats there on the board try to prolong this vote
Yes.
from happening. Right now, we have two very awesome applicants, David Paul Blumenshine.
Hmm.
And as you said, I'm looking to serve. This is something I truly didn't want to do. I'm
Great.
trying to
You
do
should.
my
Yeah.
job, right?
Definitely.
But yeah, I would be satisfied with either of you guys. Just personally, I think it would be wonderful to get somebody who's just not a rhino, right? Like,
Right.
let's call it
That's
what
what
it
I
is.
feared. Yes.
Yeah,
That's what I feared. Hmm.
somebody who's not a rhino. And the thing of it is, they have a majority right now. The Democrats on the county board have a majority because they filled that county 8 seat
Yeah.
um, at a different time than that of the county 5 seat, because they were so hell bent on that 60 days. So what, like, are you worried that the Democrats are going to wind up trying to prolong this vote? So say, fast forward, let's go to the next meeting here where you're going to be
Yeah.
voted on. And then they try to say, well, let's push this out. Let's push this out. They don't want to
Yeah.
vote on Chad
I
Berck, or they
have.
don't want to vote on David.
Yeah. I'm worried there could be shenanigans. Yes, definitely. That they find something where they could bring in a candidate of their own that we don't know about. We know that me and Dave are our candidate. There could be
Hmm.
another one out there that hasn't been announced. That it could be a Republican. That maybe one of theirs. Um, that they could push it out, extend it,
Hmm.
or find a clause where it doesn't have to be a Republican. And who knows what they're up to? There,
Hmm.
we actually stood strong. The Republicans did at the last meeting by not allowing the Zoom vote, which
Hmm.
technically, I totally 100%. I'm proud of those Republicans on the county board for standing strong and not allowing that. Because if he was absent, pre-Zoom, pre-COVID, would not have allowed the vote. Period. You were absent. You were absent. There's no proxy voting. Excellent. That was an excellent move. That was actually, I factored that in my decision making. I want to stand with people that stand strong like that. I'm not going to waste my time with people that are not going to stand with me. Standing shoulder to shoulder in the military with brothers, if I know they're not going to have my back, it makes it difficult to stand there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, so, yeah. Well, and we
that
saw
was
that
a huge factor.
With Stan
North stood by himself every meeting. Not one Republican ever, and I let him know, not one Republican on that normal council, a so-called Republican, ever had his back. And that was shameful. And I called him out, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely a factor where I'm sure Dave's thinking about it too. I'd like to hear his opinion on it. He's a little bit probably more well versed in some of the insider goings of the local politics of the area. He's been around a little more.
I would say that the Democrats do try to keep it pretty tight-lipped, considering, they keep things under wraps until the day of. I was very shocked to hear, and in fact, I've actually got my own kind of conspiracy theory, not really. But I have a feeling that they told Jack, and I don't know, but they told Jack Abraham, who was the Democrat that was absent, to stay absent in order to push this narrative out there that the Republicans strong-armed and that they refused to let an ill man participate in a meeting, right? Because they knew that they weren't. Yeah. So they might have told him, hey, stay home. So that way we as a party, because Patrick, whatever his name, Cortese, who is a part of the McLean County Democrat, he's the chair of the McLean County Democrats, not on the board, but just the party, came out the very next day. I mean, with this beautiful statement, right? And this profound statement that this was all partisan politics and that this was like gamesmanship, and like, how could they? They've never voted for no one to participate remotely before, and they tried to paint the Republicans in a negative light and try to hurt the Republicans in a way that was crafty. And they thought that the means of, hey, well, we didn't get the chairmanship, but hey, if we're not going to get the chairmanship, they might have been able to see, hey, the writing on the wall, we're not going to be able to take this chairmanship away if we're in a stalemate. We have to fill this vacancy with a majority. We think that the majority is more important, so that way we can get a rhino in that county 5 district seat and vote on the rhino that we want, right? And they would have probably said, hey, that's more important. Let's sacrifice the chairmanship, give the Republicans their chairmanship, whatever. Let's make sure that we have the majority, because that is exactly kind of how it played out, because the Republicans on the board then bent the knee to this 60-day thing. Where you had to fill that vacancy for the 60 days. And they had already hammered them with the Jack Abraham not letting him participate remotely. So then you had a few Republicans who bent the knee a little bit and sacrificed that majority. So I think that the stronger play from the Republicans wouldn't have even been to not allow him to vote, but to rather stay stronger on the 60-day thing.
That's actually, yes. Yes, it would have made totally more sense to have both vote at the same time. Because you're tied at that point. One Democrat, one Republican, vote them in at the same time. Now you do have a majority of Democrats.
Yeah, well, and at that time they couldn't have filled them both at that moment, because that would have been
at this next board meeting, have
Mhm.
both Republican and both Democrat vote them in identically. You're tied 9-9 or whatever the numbers are,
Mhm.
and do it simultaneously.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I said, there's always shenanigans in Illinois
Mm.
politics.
Yeah.
So it the only thing I can think of is maybe the chairman can control it.
Uh-huh.
We
And
shall see if they stay strong.
yeah, the chairman, that's Catherine Metzger, and
Catherine Metzger,
uh
yes.
we're talking with Chad Berck. He has placed an application to fill the County Board District 5 seat, and I wanted to have him on to talk about a few things and to talk about who he is as a person and to talk about, hey, where do we go from here in McLean County politics? We've already talked briefly about the county administrator getting this raise and how it wasn't transparent, right? She makes, I think it's going to be by 2029, near 200,000, maybe 176,000, something like that, and it was an 11% increase, this employee contract. And people were upset that that wasn't transparent, that that was kind of rubber stamped like at the last meeting. So we talked a little bit about that. We've also talked about the county board district 8 seat being filled, now giving the Democrats that majority come the next meeting. Will the Democrats play some shenanigans again and try to prolong either the vote on Chad Berck or David Paul Blumenshine? We'll see if they come up with a different candidate, a rhino candidate, possibly, to vote on. I hope that Catherine Metzger, and my thoughts or my question to you, Chad, would be um, Catherine Metzger. So she is the one to nominate you, right? And to bring you up for a vote, correct?
Correct. I believe that I'm waiting to hear from someone on the board as to the next step.
Mm,
Um, the Republican Party at that meeting, they said that they were contacting the board members and that someone from the board would be contacting me as to um,
what
what
the
would
next
be
move?
happening. What would be happening? Um, I didn't ask for any endorsements or anything like that. That wasn't what I was there for. Just to let them know, hey, here I am. This is me. I'm running, or not running. I'm seeking uh, the seat
Hmm.
um, uh, that John, left reluctantly, um, and we all expressed concern for John. That was one of the things we talked about, that we hated to see that he was had left. At that
Hmm.
time, we didn't know it was because of health issues.
Hmm.
We all kind of thought that maybe that was what was going on. But
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to say too is that, a lot of people were like, "Oh, how could the Republicans do such a thing and not let Jack Abraham participate in that meeting?" That's really party politics and things like that. What I thought was initially the party politics, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you have a different opinion here, Chad. What I thought was party politics was exploiting the fact that John McIntyre had resigned and they tried to fill that chairmanship with Elizabeth Johnston,
that was
and try to
total party politics. Yes,
yeah, so that,
that
I mean,
was
that was first.
that was the first thing. They jumped right on that seat, and that was a Republican seat. Yes,
Mhm.
um, it should not have even been voted on. They should have uh, rightly done. A Republican got it, but it should have been a Republican just uh, seated immediately into that chairmanship because it
Yeah.
was a John's seat. So
And of course,
uh,
you and I know that government has all of these rules and
the rules
regulations
and
and the
procedures, yes.
procedures, and it just gets more and more complicated as you start to read those. We're talking with Chad Burke. We've got about 7 or so minutes left, Chad. And really, what I wanted to end the conversation on was, your opponent has already gotten, or opponent. I don't want to call him your opponent because it
No,
isn't like
yeah,
Yeah, David Paul Blumenshine and you
Yep.
are both seeking the seat, and I think you guys are both great options. I don't really care as long as a rhino doesn't get in. Right?
Me too.
But
Me too.
yeah, Dave's a great guy. And these people have gone after him already. So I'm just going to read something to you, and
Oh
I
no,
want
I
your
hadn't heard this.
reaction. So, yeah, so David Paul Blumenshine helped organize MAGA extremists from Bloomington in the participation of an insurrection. So,
Hmm.
including a few folks that were self admittedly investigated by the FBI over their death threats to the vice president while participating in the insurrection. Uh, your thoughts about this insurrection? Do you think
Hmm.
that is going to give you a leg up over David Paul being nominated? Your thoughts about it? Is it going to help you, harm you, maybe, or where do you stand on David Paul Blumenshine and the insurrection?
David, well, first off, if David helped anybody go to Washington D.C. for Trump's event on January 6th, I have no problem with that because it wasn't a riot. It was a just an event. My opinion about that whole event was it was all staged. So it was a government thing. It was all
Hmm.
done by thing. I don't agree that it was a riot. So, but that's my opinion, and that's take that and 50 cents, and you can maybe get a something somewhere. So I'm glad. Good. I'm glad Dave maybe sent somebody on a bus to Washington D.C. to enjoy Trump's speech. I As far as me gaining from it, I doubt I'll gain anything from that. Uh, so I don't seek to gain anything from that at all. I'm ashamed that someone would try to put someone down for that because what the government is doing to the people, putting them in that prison in Washington, D.C., in that jail, is a horrendous tragedy. And it's one more example of the overreach that the current administration is doing. And we could talk for hours about how I feel about it,
Hmm.
but it's horrendous
Mm.
what these guys are going through in that jail. So
Yeah, and if you
I
don't
won't go
believe,
into it anymore, but
yeah,
yeah,
if you
what were
don't
you
believe
saying? I'm sorry.
myself or Chad, you can just look up J6 jail photos, and you will see that they don't have clothes.
They
They have
no medical care,
shorts and a mat.
solitary confinement. Yeah,
Yeah, it's real sad. And yeah, Ashley Babbitt, a Trump supporter who was attending the rally, was the only one who really tragically died. I've heard of other people being at that rally, Trump supporters being beaten, carried out on gurneys, things like that. But yeah, I don't know if it necessarily was an insurrection, if the so-called insurrectionists were the ones who died.
right.
Obviously, it wasn't very successful because
Was it
Ashley Babbitt was crawling through a window or something like that, and she was shot in the middle
shot in the
of her
head?
climbing through the window. So
When the barricades are moved aside and doors are opened by the Capitol Police, it's not an insurrection, and nothing. There was no fires. There was no uh, weapons. No police were beaten up, and that was not an insurrection.
mhm,
There was undercover FBI that were doing the damage. They have all this evidence of this, but it's not being put out yet because it's still under the investigation by the Republicans, and it's
mhm.
coming out. So it's 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 all been anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, and
I don't
that was
seek to gain from Dave, and I'm sorry he's getting grief from that from
mhm,
whoever is putting that out there. I hate it for him, but
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, well, and at the end of the day, it should all be about, our constitutional republic, and, I really like what you had to say here, and we've got a couple of minutes left. The 2 basic metrics, the Constitution and the Bible.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
my question would be, do you believe evil exists? I like to ask that question of our political leaders because I think it's important to know where you stand fundamentally. So, do you believe evil exists, Chad Berck?
100% evil exists. It manifests, and you can see it in the reactions that ex- people show and exhibit when you start to discuss Jesus, anything about God, the Bible, the Holy Spirit. They become irrational, and
Mm,
that shows you that there is evil.
mm,
Um, Evil is taking a life of an unborn child. Evil is trafficking in children and families. What's coming across the border right now. Um, as a supporter and sponsor of Operation Underground Railroad myself, I have hundreds of stories, not thousands, but hundreds of stories I can share about trafficked children um, from that have been saved through that organization alone. That's
mm,
pure evil. If you watch the movie that came out recently,
mhm.
that just is one small little snippet of what exists.
Yeah, and well,
So,
I from what I've heard from community members is that it exists here in Bloomington Normal.
oh,
You
it's
wouldn't even
definitely here. Yeah.
yeah, and, like, these spa type places, these women, are told to do, this, and this, and if you step outside of it, then we're booting you out of the United States, and they're here, um, just being told what to do and, doing sex trafficking, which is one of the most heinous things that I think of, you would some could argue is the worst form of slavery, forcing somebody into like some
Definitely.
sort of sex slavery. But I do think that that's here in McLean County. I'd love to see law enforcement do some sort of task force, maybe even the sheriff's department. Who knows? How we can combat this at a local level. I'd like to see our leaders talk more about it. I feel like a lot of politicians and law enforcement they can't talk about it. I know our law enforcement. I mean, they've done pedophile busts, they've done
Hmm.
sex trafficking busts, they've done all kinds of things like that, but I would love to see politicians make it more of a priority, Chad. But,
I'm going to speak a lot. You're going to hear me speak about things. I'm not embarrassed, and if I catch flack, I don't care. My family are all prepared. We may get things to happen. We're
mhm,
ready. I'm going to be
mm,
very vocal about things. God has prepared us. We're ready. The Holy Spirit is always with us, and I get emotional. Um, I get very emotional about certain topics like
mm,
sex trafficking, evil.
yeah,
I've experienced evil in my life directly. Um,
yeah,
because when you're doing God's work, that's when the devil and evil strikes you. Okay, when you're doing the work that God intends for you to do, that is when the evil will come after you
mhm,
because He does not want you to do that,
mhm.
uh, especially.
Yeah, and I love it. At the end of the day, Chad, we answer to him and him alone. Right? At the end of the day, we
Amen.
don't answer to anybody else. Well, we've got to
Amen.
go. That's our
All
time.
right.
But Chad, thanks so much for joining me. And folks, you guys can
Thank you, Kat.
find this podcast and listen to Chad and his thoughts about the McLean County board seat that he's seeking via a application and an appointment that's going to take place at the next meeting. You guys have a great rest of your day. Again, thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Kat. Appreciate it.